very grateful to have you on the podcast. I know we were talking a bit before we started recording that as a fellow Lebanese Canadian who also lived in Toronto for a very long time, following your career, admiring you from afar, and really sort of inspired by your success and just the person you are outside of just the corporate track. So thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you, George. First of all, I really appreciate you reaching out. Second, I love seeing people like you, the new generation that are successful. So I have to congratulate you on your success and being where you are today. And I have a lot of hopes from your generation because I know that you guys are the one that are going to be disrupting, and hopefully, I pray to God that one day we could all go back and raise Lebanon again and make it the best country that it used to be once upon a time.
Wow, amen. Amen to that. Yeah, let's hope so. I'll be I'll be right there with you. For folks who may not know you, especially maybe not the folks not in Canada, you're I'll give the corporate spiel first, but you're the former global channel chief of Dell Technologies. You're the former president of Cisco Canada. You're a board member to several companies. You're now doing your thing as, which I love, by the way, a public speaker. I think you're in the roster of Speaker Spotlight, which is a great org. I have a few friends who are in it. If I'm not mistaken, Michelle Romano is a
Yeah.
part of it. There's a couple of like very affluential, Canadian executives and leaders that are a part of it. You're a technologist though for 25 years of your career, very focused on building the customer base, leadership first, and a word you use very frequently is servant leadership, which I always love to learn more about, especially from executives in your seat. Before we get into the career, the aspiring, the growing, the building, the titles, the leading the teams, take me back to Lebanon. I believe is where you were born, where you grew up, where a lot of the entrepreneurial DNA of Rola Dagher started, and I really want to know more about that.
I absolutely love the question you're starting with, George, because, for people that know me really well, they would tell you that it doesn't matter where and when. I always start by saying I'm a proud Lebanese and a grateful Canadian. A proud Lebanese because we were forced to leave Lebanon, but no one can force Lebanon out of our hearts. And a grateful Canadian for what Canada has offered me and my family and people like you the opportunity to be where we are today. But at 55, I can't tell you how much I reflect back on the little village that I was born and raised in, and it's called Dahr al and the translation of that is back of the cave. I was born and raised in a village that were all the Daggers family. They all married each other and the cousins, and you know how it is back home. You're smiling and shaking your head because that's how it is.
It's also a big last name. Like that's a massive family in Lebanon and
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah, exactly. But except my dad, he was the shit disturber and he was that disruptor, and I take after him proudly, have that title too. He went outside of our town and married my mom, and of course, that was a big thing for our town. So, was born and raised in Darul Gara, to a family of 6 girls, and obviously know the culture really well, George. 6 girls is like, "Poor man," they used to say, "Haram Michael Dagher, he has 6 girls. What is he gonna do with 6 girls? They're gonna amount to nothing." So at one point of, he picked me to be his little boy. So he used to cut my hair really short, and people would think, "Oh, he has 5 daughters and a boy?" And they're like, "No, no, she's a girl too, but she's his tomboy." So he taught me how to fix, cars because he's a mechanic and he's a body shop. He had a little shop in our town, and I used to go after school and dirty myself and come home and get in trouble by my mom because I was so curious of learning how to change a tire on a car, which I did at 9 years old, and I got in trouble because we were going to church to Palm Sunday, and you know how big that is.
Yes.
And, for me, those days of Dahar Lamgara are the days that put a huge smile on my face that I wish now, and we talked about it earlier, that I wish that Lebanon is safe enough for me to go back and rebuild. And I did go 3 times in 36 years, and one of my proudest moment is when my dad asked me to go back and donate the house that we were born and raised to the church. But then over the years, it was
Wow.
neglected so bad that it was destroyed. So just 3 years ago, as I was fighting long COVID and battling, I made a promise to rebuild the house that
Mm.
we, donated once to church, and I did, and I went back, and we had the opening with the bishop and the community and built a community center in the town in the name of my father to always remind people, when you have 6 girls that you thought once upon a time they will amount to nothing, they amount to a lot, so watch out.
That's amazing. Wow, that's a pretty full circle moment. And yeah, that's a weird thing I think in our culture. It was probably more prevalent in the past where, to your point, for I guess different reasons. But yeah, that's crazy how you grew up and you have that stigma from the time you're you're born.
Yeah.
And you're like you kind of yeah, you're already against what feels like odds at an early age. How long were you in Lebanon
I was
when you were
in
born?
Lebanon, for 17 years. 17,
Oh wow.
yeah, so when I came to Canada, was almost 18, but I escaped Lebanon during the Civil War in 1990, basically smuggled my daughter, to the airport, and that's between, East and West. Of course, you know that we couldn't cross the border, and I smuggled my daughter in a back of a trunk of a car, to escape Lebanon, during that time and go to Cyprus and live on the streets pretty much because there was nothing. We didn't have money. You were lucky if you had access to get out of Lebanon because at the time, I was waiting for my immigration paper because my parents decided that I should get married at the age of 16 and then left to Canada with my sisters, 5 sisters, and I stayed behind, and it was during the toughest time where the Civil War was happening and even cousins were fighting each others. You remember between the 2 political parties, and it was a blessing that I was able to get out of Lebanon at that time, and once I got to Cyprus, I called my parents, and I could hear my mom crying and screaming and saying, "She's alive, she's alive, she's alive," because there was no communications.
I was gonna say this is before, Instagram Live and WhatsApp.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you can text anytime you want. It's a
Yeah.
very, very difficult time when especially you're going alone.
Yeah,
You have
we even
kids.
have phones in our homes, and the town had probably 4 phones, and my parents will call the neighbor in the middle of the night, of course, the time difference, for me to run and talk to them for 5 minutes before the phone cuts off, so, yeah, those are the good times. It's how it started and how it's going, definitely a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. I mean, well, also you bring up Cyprus. It brings up some core memories, I guess. We were there in '06, and when that war happened during that summer, my parents sent my sister and I that summer. We had just immigrated to Canada. They couldn't leave. We were accumulating days applying for the PR, but they sent us just to have fun for like 1 month to visit my grandparents, and it was that summer. So we also went to Cyprus, thankfully in a better construct though. Like the Canadian government very graciously like evacuated all of us from Cyprus to Germany, Germany back to Ottawa. But just even as a much younger person, like I think that was very formative
Yeah,
to especially to I think what that taught me is like when we were standing in line to board the ship and I left my aunts and uncles and cousins, I think just feeling very grateful that we did have an out. To your point about being a grateful Canadian and Lebanese, I think that's what it really solidified in my mind, that we actually are able to leave and go to a country that's at the time much safer and, presents a better future for us.
absolutely,
How,
absolutely.
how was that for you? I mean, it's very much a story of like, I guess, perseverance, going through a lot of difficulty. You're sort of relying on your own. That's independence. What are you thinking at the time? Because you're young yourself. I mean, you're going through this. It's not like you're in your 50. This is what your early 20s.
Yeah, so I was still a teenager when that was
Yeah.
happening, a teenager with a daughter, and for me, I mean, it's engraved in me, it's the resiliency, the determination to get out of the Lebanon. I had 2 choices. I either sit in the bomb shelter just the rest like the rest of everyone around me and basically accepting the status quo and wait till things happen, or I just the determination for me is to fight for a better future for my daughter. Stephanie, for me, was the reason that I can't raise my daughter in this environment, and I would wake up every day thinking of ways to feel stronger and create that image in my head of me running at the airport and hugging my mom and dad in Canada. The fear, of course, the fear of crossing the border, and you have a sniper there crossing the border from the east side to the west side of Beirut to get to the airport, and the sniper is pointing a gun at you and thinking, okay, I'm not going to make it. The fear of getting to the airport, and the guy looks at me, the custom guy says, well, your daughter's passport is during General Aoun's days, and this is not legit because at that time we didn't have a formal president. So you can go, but your daughter can't go. And I remember having $500 that my dad gave me as a backup and said to me, "You use it as an emergency." I had given him I literally slipped that $500 under the passport for him to let me go through and get my daughter on the plane. And when I got on the plane, it was surreal because it was my first time being on a plane, but it was surreal that I kept praying, "God, please help us close the door. Let me get up in the air. Let me get out of Lebanon safe." And when I got to Cyprus, I felt the relief that even though I didn't have my visa yet, I slept on the steps of the embassy for days and begging them that I could call my parents, and they let me. And I got our paperwork at the time. That was for me the moment that I felt like victory, like I achieved something. And it was built in me. You know, I read something years ago that stuck with me. You never know how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have, period, full stop. And that's what I have. It's the strength that keeps me fighting no matter what, the corporate world, the personal world. And I've always said, even in boardrooms, when, things get tough, I would like, oh, I went through bullets. I went through bombs, I went through homelessness, I went through diseases, I went through cancer, bullying, abuse, racism. I can't get through a meeting. Are you kidding? This is a walk in the park. Let's go. So you build that resiliency. In fact, for me, it's like one of the doctors I used to talk to when I was going through my long COVID, and I still am fighting with long COVID. They wanted to understand the impact of COVID. So they had a doctor assessed me from a mental health perspective, the impact on the body and the mind with COVID. And she said, I want to tell you, based on what you told me in your story, a lot of people will struggle with PTSD, but yours is PTSG. And I'm like, what's the G? It's the first time I hear it. She said, it's growth because you turn every trauma in your life to a growth opportunity. You turn your struggle of back home and, being in the war zone, and you come here and you start from scratch, and then your illness and then your experience at work, and you turn it into a growth opportunity. And that's what I love. Even now at
Mm.
55, with every weakness I have, I turn into strength. With every struggle, I turn into opportunity. And that is what kept me going. So it's in my DNA, and that's what my 88 years old father reminds me every day. You're tough as a nail, no matter what happens. Always remember you can, you will, and you should.
Hmm, that's very special. Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, to turn what you've been through and, both in the past and it seems like currently with COVID, hopefully you're recovering, much better now.
Thank you.
But it's not it's easier said than done, right? And I think one thing that you brought up that I was going to ask you about, I don't usually bring it up as much, but it seems like it's a word you've been using, which is faith. How much of that has helped you in life, in your career? Yeah, feel free to talk about it at your leisure, but it's something that I don't know, that I come back to, here and there, and, it has a weird grip, I think, and faith, I think, is important. It doesn't have to be in the religious context for people who might not believe in a certain ideology, but what does that mean to you in life, in your career? How has that helped you?
I love that question because everybody these days are careful about any questions or any words that are used because they don't know if it's politically correct or not. So good on you, George, to ask me that question. I wouldn't be where I am today without my faith. I and it was embedded in me when I was young. Again, I was born. I respect all faith. I respect all religions. I respect everybody's culture. And for me specifically, born and raised in a Catholic home, my dad has taught us when we were young is just faith is extremely important. Now, it's not like for me, I could tell you at my age, I don't go to church every Sunday. I stopped going to church because the church judged me because the minute I decided to get a divorce because of the abuse that you go through your entire life. And in our culture, they don't believe in divorces and you're flagged. You have a big red flag. But when I decided to actually take control of my own life and my kids because of the abuse I've been going through for years, for 20 plus years, I was judged. But I have a strong mind that cancels the noise, but I appreciate signals.
Mhm.
And for me, my faith now, I don't go to church, not because I don't want to go, it's because I have a very strong faith and I don't need to follow anybody to believe in the power above. And faith to me is what got me through everything in life. There isn't anything that I have done without that power that gives me the strength to be able to wake up every day. I pray every morning before I wake up for 1 hour.
Mm.
And that is my meditation, that's my faith, that's what I believe in. I believe in faith to give back and to help people. I don't believe in people that preach faith and then the minute they walk out of their home, they're backstabbers or they gossip about people, or I believe in people that practice whatever makes them feel comfortable to be better humans, period, full stop.
Yeah, that's it's a very nice way of I think that's a very freeing expression too. Hopefully it helps people sort of struggling with that because I think that is sometimes an issue, right? It's still institutional and bound by rigid rules of the past and at times it's flexible, at times it's not. And you don't really have to resort to being inside a building to practice faith and to be a, a better person every day, every week. The way I look at it, my wife and I talk a lot about this. She's a psychologist, and so for us, it's kind of like a recentering almost, getting away from phones. And as a millennial myself, it's actually very refreshing to not have to be on my phone and actually think about my thoughts. it's it's very difficult to sit with your thoughts, and that's I think the point is like contemplating a little bit. What is it that you're going through? What are you thinking about? How can I improve? What did I do this week that I wasn't really proud of? That alone could be prayer, right? So I don't know. I resonate with your format, let's say,
Yeah.
and I think that's very freeing. Is that you're still subscribing to it, but it just looks very different for you.
Absolutely, and again, I mean, think about 30, 40 years ago, and, I used to call it the brainwashing of certain culture or religion
Mm,
versus now. It to me, it's all about practice what you preach, right? There's so many good people out there that maybe don't practice every day of going to a building like you put it, but they're great humans that give back to the community, give back to their friend circle, and make a difference with an impact and purpose. And to me, it's the whole concept that right now I'm building for me as I'm writing my book. In my, by the way, I'm writing a book, George, and it's my journey, how it started and how I got here, and the sacrifice that people don't see because they see the Rola Dagher, but they don't see the sacrifice that I got to Rola Dagher today versus the Rola Dagher from back in the cave, Bahadramara. And
mm,
for me, the most important part is the concept that I built my career on and I actually talk about in my entire platform is around learn it, earn it, return it.
mm,
How I learned it, because if without learning and having the growth mindset, you're very limited because to me, once you get to a point where you're comfortable, you stop growing, and learning has been the fuel for my success. And I continue to learn because I always refer to it as, you talked about your phone, George, and as a millennial, you know that you get forced to update your phone.
Mhm.
I know my daughter and my son, they're like, "I don't wanna update. I hate the new features and blah, blah, blah." But you're forced. Eventually, they force you to upgrade.
Yeah.
And it's the main thing for me is I force myself to upgrade Rola 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. That's the software upgrade. And then once you kind of, spend your most of your life, and especially the first 20 plus years of your life of learning, you get to a point where you continuous learning and unlearning that is extremely important because what worked for you in the past does not mean it's going to work for you moving forward. So you always have to have that the learn it all mindset, the growth mindset, not the know it all. And then you get to a point where the phase of earning it because nothing is given. You're 32 years old or 31, 32. You're
I'll
32 years old. And now it's the phase of your life is earning it, right?
Mhm.
You have to earn the position that you're in now. It's because you got to continue to learn. You got to continue to provide the impact and the value. And people need to see what George is all about outside of just the learning that, especially now more than ever from an AI perspective, knowledge is free. What differentiates you is your emotional quotient, your empathy quotient, and most importantly, your execution quotient. Because they don't want to see just the hype up George, it's so excited, or the Rola, the passionate Rola. And I learned how to dial back on certain things and dial up on unlearning in earning my position of being the Rola that provides value and impact and purpose. And that is not handed to you, that's earned. That's not given, that's working really hard for people to put you in a position where they could trust you and give you the opportunity to be someone and open the door for you. But the rest is your job to ensure that you prove everybody wrong that doubted that you're going to get there because a lot of people in my career said, "Oh, she's only successful because of her good looks." I'm like, "Guess what? Oh, I'm grateful because I have the good looks and the brains,
And
full package." And I've
it's a
decided,
double duo.
don't be hating people. Don't be I've got the full package because I worked hard for it. Because the system was not set up for me to be where I am today, but I earned it. And then it takes me to the third phase, which is the returner. And to me, that is the most important phase of my life is how I've learned it and earned it. And I'm in the position of returning it and giving it back. And why? Why did I decide to work on an initiative when the Beirut explosion happened and raise $55 million dollars to to Lebanon with the Red Cross and Humanitarian Coalition? Why I gave back to homelessness, why I gave back to the community, and I continue to do that because I don't want to be viewed as Rola Dagher, the president of Cisco or the global channel chief officer at Dell Technology. I want my legacy to be she did this to help other immigrants. She did this to help newcomers. She did this to help homeless people. She did this to impact people that has major issues with mental health because we, especially as Arabs, bury everything under the carpet. I was a huge ambassador for mental health and I continue to do. So shame on me and shame on us as humans, George, when you get to a point in your life that you've gone to the top, you have to send the elevator back down and lift others with you. Hence the reason what I told you when I decided to rebuild our home that, and donated to church on behalf of dad. That was my biggest accomplishment in life. It wasn't the title, it wasn't the position, the money, or the homes or the cars. It was for me to do something that is meaningful that would leave a memory for my father for everything he has done to raise 6 girls, and that was my biggest accomplishment today and always.
I mean, it's like a drop of the mic every time you're speaking, so I don't really know if you're making my job very hard here. I love it. I love everything you just said. There's a lot to unpack. One, congrats on the upcoming book. I love this.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see it. I will pre-order. I will help market. So that's awesome. I can't wait to read the full story, and thank you for giving us a glimpse of what it looks like on this podcast. The one thing that kind of comes to my mind from everything you're saying, because I wrestle with this a lot. I think a lot of folks in my generation and younger, you probably know this as well through your kids and just kind of being around, the younger gen, which I know you're very fond of. Even, as you were building teams, you always, I think, looked out for the younger gen. It seems like people my age and below really want to make impact. Like you keep hearing this, right? Corporate social responsibility, ESG. We want to make an impact. We want to leave a legacy. But I think the way you lay it out is kind of nice because it's different seasons of life. And the way I see it, like looking back, it's very difficult maybe for you to have the same amount of impact and be able to leave, hopefully, the legacy that you're trying to leave if it wasn't for the 20-year stint of your corp. But yeah, it's very difficult for you to do that. Have you not had the success in corporate Canada, corporate North America, the global corporate success that you've had? I think you can still have an impact, but it's what I like about what you're saying is you're learning. The first season is learning, being a sponge, digesting, and that happens in hopefully all the chapters of your life.
Yeah.
But there's a big season of focus for that. Then when you're earning it, a big part of that is also proving and executing, not just talking about it. Anybody can say, I want to make an impact. But I mean, you also have to be in a position of influence to have a platform and then hopefully leveraging it to return, I think is what you're saying. That's at least how I'm absorbing the three categories that you described.
Yes, absolutely, you got it right, and, I'll tell you, those are the chapters in your life that never stop, because every phase of your life requires a new version of you. And that version, I'll take you back to it, the learning, the earning, and returning, they are the foundational aspect of your journey, but it's your job to continue to learn and continue to earn and continue to return in every phase. George, when I look at you, I have hope. When I look at the generation, the millennials and the Gen Zers, and I look at myself and I say, if I was able to accomplish what I accomplished without having what you guys have today, I know your generation is going to do a lot more. So there's the good and the bad about this generation. I'll start with the good. The good is you guys have the technology that you need. You guys have the freedom that you need to make a difference. You guys have the tools. You guys have the support of your parents. You don't have the struggles that our generation came with, but your bad in your struggle is you have too much of it.
Hmm.
Too much of it that if you don't use it to your advantage and you don't know how to use it, it could harm you. And this generation is as much as you guys, I mean, I'll give you an example of how what's happening in the Middle East. The creating the awareness and educating people in knowledge is free because social media gives you everything. You don't need to sit down with somebody to educate you on what's happening. You can form your opinion, you can create awareness around everything that's happening, and social media does a great job, but also does a crappy job at certain things. So you need to be able to filter the noise, but then again, how do you acknowledge the signals to learn more? What scares me the most about this generation is the fact that, and it's not your fault at all. Number one is you guys in this new generation, the Gen Zers are more than the millennials too, George, is the fact that guys are going through the worst time in history of pressure of fitting in. And when I talk about mental health, I talk about if you look at the generation you're in the Gen Zers, in the youth population, the amount of mental health situation and the percentage of the impact that has on you guys is huge.
Hmm.
If you look at what's happening in the world, and even I'll give you an example. just in Canada, and but it's much bigger. It's like 100 times bigger when you take a North American number. But during COVID, probably 70,000 people died in Canada in 5 years, but over 500,000 people died of suicide and mental health.
Mhm.
And that's the pressure that society is putting on this generation that scares me because they're not able to handle the way we grew up in our generation versus this generation. And with AI now, you have more power and more knowledge to be a Harvard graduate, as smart as a Harvard graduate in 30 seconds, not even. So
Mhm.
the tools that you have today, if you don't know how to work smart with it could harm you. But I will tell you also, our generation of parents that grew up like your parents back home during the war, and we worked so hard to get our kids to where they are today, we want to be able to give you the best life possible. So in a way, it's good, and in a way, it's bad because why would my son wanna work harder if I bought him a car when he graduated?
Mhm.
If he wants a cell phone, okay, I'll buy him a cell phone. If I help buying him a home, and I look at both my kids and they're very independent and they're great and they're very responsible kids, which I'm extremely proud of, but because I have helped them so much to get to where they need to be, and now they're standing on their own feet. So versus in the old days, it's like, here you go. You either sink or swim.
Or swim.
Right?
If it is no op
So I have a lot of appreciation to and a lot of respect and believe into this generation that's going to make a difference. But this generation needs to be self-driven, motivated, determined that nothing can stop them and make a difference through the technology, not make the world a worse place, make the world a much better place. But they just
Yeah.
need that motivation and that push because a lot of this generation, and some people might not like me saying that, but I could tell you is they're lazy. Again,
Mhm.
because why do you have to work 10 times harder if but not all of them, of course. So you've got the generation that's kind of lazy that depends on everybody else and don't want to work hard. They think that things could just come. But to me, it's like it's very important that this generation needs to show up and speak up and continue to be determined to make a difference.
So that's it's a good tangent on the next sort of chapter I wanna ask you, which is showing up with confidence and sort of not dimming your light because you're afraid to. I think this is, if you look at the younger gen as we're talking about, whether it's depression, anxiety, fear of imposter syndrome. There's even research now that so many Gen Zs don't even want positions of leadership. They're like retracting from it. I heard this already publicly, so I feel comfortable already mentioning it. And given the theme of the conversation, you've already been very vulnerable as it is. Remember, I told you remind me a lot of my mom, sort of learning about your story. And one thing that absolutely floored me that I didn't know about you was that you didn't end up going to university because obviously your situation, leaving Lebanon during the war, immigrating to Canada, starting from ground zero. I mean, I just thought to myself, I'm like, that is absolutely, it's insane and it's not in a weird way. Now that I know you better, I'm like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense why you were able to be so successful because you were malleable. Like you're able to deal with change, ambiguity, because you're not sort of rigid. Like you're not bound by 4 years of formal education. Here's what you need to know, Rola, and these are the 30 courses you need to know for us to subscribe you a BA or whatever it is that you would get. How did you I just want to lay this up for people because I think it's a very nice, fun fact about you. How do you then become successful in corporate Canada? What are lessons from the C suite that you've gathered? How do you show up with confidence? For us, climbing in our careers, looking back at Oda when you first started at Dell as a director, what would you tell her?
I look at myself, and if I would go, back in, 20 plus years, I would look at that little kid that was made fun of and bullied, and I would say, "I am beyond proud of what you have accomplished, Rola." Not from titles perspective or, materialistic stuff. I would say to her, the fear you had back then that shaped you to who you are today and did not define you is literally a miracle that was in the making of continuous learning and determination. So, and I will also tell her that never take that long to believe in yourself and believe in your story and your ability, and never worry about what would people say.
Mm,
And that is a reminder to everybody out there that be yourself. Be yourself because everyone else is taken. Be your authentic self. But when I say be your authentic self, don't be always about me, 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 me. You can't walk into a board meeting and be your authentic self and think that it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or holidays at your home and you're like, oh, and knowing us, like very passionate Lebanese, yelling, screaming, trying to get a word across, and everybody. In fact, now at home, I'm the quietest one, knowing that I used to be back in the days because I'm too old and I can't compete with all the other sisters talking over each other and, 12 nieces and nephews, right? So, so be your authentic self that brings value to the conversation. Don't be
mm,
someone else and don't try to fit in everything. It's okay to stand out. When people would say, did you fit in? I didn't fit in anywhere I went, George, but I was proud to stand up and stand out because I had values and I had value to provide and I made a difference in every organization I went through. So when I look back in some of the lessons I learned during my leadership is, don't be afraid to bring an idea and knowing that you have done your work. Don't be afraid to take chances because if I didn't take chances of being in positions and learning from it and failing in some position, I wouldn't be where I am today. So failing for me was the biggest learning to get me to where I am today. But I had calculated risks and approaches to things. I didn't think like I would be like, oh, I want to be a doctor. I wouldn't take that risk because I know it wasn't in me and I wasn't academic. Academically, I didn't have the opportunity to finish my schooling because I was too busy hiding in bomb shelters back home in Lebanon. And when I came to Canada, I had no choice but to work. I had a little girl, I had to support her, I had to create a family, I had to support many people around me. But today, at 55 and 2 years ago, I was awarded 4 honorary doctorate degrees in the Order of Canada and King Charles III Coronation Medal, and you could see them behind me. It's not because of my titles, George. It's because of the value and the difference I made and the impact I made and the purpose that I had to make a difference. People are not going to hand you an honorary doctorate just because a title that you have. Nobody
mm,
cares about the title. You have to focus on your first name and your last name because the title comes and goes. Who is George Khalife without Norton Rose? That's what you need to build. And that is for me the biggest lesson is when you start learning how to attract opportunity, attract the right people in your life, how to stop chasing. When you're young, you have to chase because you're hungry, but you chase the right opportunities for you. Don't just run after big titles. Learn how to attract, not chase, and learn how to progress, not impress.
mm,
And I've learned that during my years and my experience. And if I look now and say, how did I do it? I mean, the amount of hours I put in and the work. I was at, they used to joke around Rola as a Terminator because I look back now and I'm like, I don't know how I would work 20-hour days and sleep for 2 hours and then get up and get ready and then do it all over again. Now, if I don't sleep 7 hours a night, I'm a huge mess. Of course, it comes with age too, but that's what you need to have is the foundation that you need to build to make a difference. So, George, I will ask you now, what are the top 3 things that you're so passionate about?
It's a really good question. You're asking overall, right? Life,
Yeah,
work,
and
all
you
inclusive.
don't even have to answer the question now, but think about it and think Goop is what are you passionate about? What are the top 3 things that make you so excited to wake up every day when it comes to making a difference, right? And that's where you have to build the brand of George Khalife outside of going to the office every day and do what you do and love what you do, right? In today, more than ever, I can't tell you how important it is for us as leaders, as humans, to understand the impact of AI on us from a learning perspective. I speak every day about this topic. Knowledge is free. The most important thing today in the world is language, and it's English because Chat GPT is all it is just this the most precious thing is the language because that's how you communicate, right? And then for me, I'll give you the example of how I used to work. I used to have an EA, I used to have a chief of staff, I used to have a strategy person, this, and that to do all my work to prepare me to be in front of a customer or in front of an audience to speak or do a meeting. Well, guess what? Now my best friend is Chat GPT because guess what? I have multiple agents set up in my Chat GPT, one for Rola speaking engagement, one for Rola's, consulting, one for Rola's podcasting, one for Rola's book. And they have learned my habits and my memories and learned everything about me that helped me be better and more efficient. And that's
Mm.
how you are in a generation where it's the agentic world where the agent is going to be your best friend, where we're in the fifth industrial revolution that George, between the first, second, third, and fourth, we had years and years and years, 50 years, 25, 30, and 10 years. The transition of technology from the internet to cell phone applications and now AI is huge. In this generation, in the world needs to be prepared of using it for good.
Yeah, a lot to think about there. It kind of reminds me, I did a podcast. So funny, so many CEOs share the same mindsets. I'm kind of finding this out through this podcast. I had the former CEO of Baxter, who was there for like 23 years and led 60,000 people, 12 billion in market cap. And the one thing I asked him, I said, Harry, what I kind of asked along the same question: confidence. How do you deal with stress? He's like, George, I spend so much time thinking about my values. What do I care about? What are my personal values? And that became my moral compass. And outside of that, if those things are in line, everything else I can deal with.
Yeah.
I think it's just hard to think about that. And to your point, it's like you constantly have distractions. In some cases, we look for the easy way to ask, like we rely on technology to tell us what is important to us. Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I talked about is the empathy quotient and the emotional quotient and then the execution quotient. So
Mm,
it's very important to differentiate yourself from what's happening in the world today, and that's what humans 5 years from now, George, you and I should have this again to compare what I said 5 years ago and what I
that'd
will
be cool.
say to you. I think that would be so cool, and hopefully your little one will be running around behind and calling you "Baba," and you're like, "Okay, when we finish the conversation with Rola, and I have to tell you, the world is gonna look completely different. The only thing that humans have to differentiate themselves are on their and then I call it the EQ, but not just emotions. Again, I said emotion, empathy, and execution. And those are the 3 things that are gonna differentiates us from any agent or any artificial intelligence. Think about now they're talking about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, ASI, which is artificial super intelligent, where like an AI is going to be smarter than all of us humans combined. Imagine that. So, but to you as a human, what's your biggest differentiator is the value you create
Mm.
for people to believe the difference between George giving an answer from an AI perspective and George giving a human answer on empathy, execution, and emotion.
I love that. Yeah, I'll also probably add, from what I'm seeing and I guess hearing from leaders and even our organization and beyond, is physically showing up. I know there's a huge debate about hybrid working virtually. We're not going to get into this because it's a huge conversation in of itself.
Yeah.
But I just think, showing up, being present, saying yes, being prepared, going above and beyond. I think not being passive is something that has personally helped me in my career, and just saying yes to opportunities and then being selective as you progress. But in the beginning, sort of funneling up is really important. I did want to and I know we're coming up on time. I just wanted to, I'd be remiss not to ask you about servant leadership. And I know so much of what we're talking about already leads to that. But I don't know the exact number, but what was the largest team you've ever sort of oversaw at one of the companies, whether it's Cisco, Dell Technologies?
I've had, mm, 3, 4, 5,000 people and up in my org at one time. I had a much bigger org dotted line in that, but it was huge. $6 trillion businesses, $5 billion businesses, huge businesses.
So suffice to say, that's very substantial.
Yeah.
When you're in that leadership position and you have that much responsibility, pressure, what did leadership teach you about your style of leadership that worked for you at that time?
Yeah, I tell you, I like, for me, it was servant leadership right off the bat. And when I started speaking about servant leadership, it was not no one was even understood what it was, because for me, I've always led with my heart, soul, and mind before I led with spreadsheets or documents. Because for me, as a mother, I learned how to be so resilient at point to save my daughter out of a war and a bomb shelter and to raise 2 unbelievable kids that I'm responsible for because I brought them to this world. So, but and I relate that same mentality and approach in the workplace. When you walk into a workplace and you become a leader, so many people are in the organization's life depends on you. You are responsible for the well-being of these people in the workplace. So therefore, you have to lead with so much empathy. You have to lead with so much understanding and understand that people want to be treated just like how you want to be treated. I'll give you an example. Imagine you walk into an office every day and at the door you see your boss and he would look at you, "Hey George, good morning. Did you do your homework? Did you do your homework? Did you do your homework? Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that?" And you'll be like, "Okay, good morning to you too. Hope you had a great evening, and would you like a coffee or you'd like to go for a walk and we just, walk and chat?" Walk and talk. Imagine you have that approach versus someone coming into your office and telling you the same thing every time. What would you do? You would avoid walking into the office and seeing that person because you don't want to be in that position. But if I see you, I would say, "Good morning, George. How are you? Hope you had a great night. How's the family? How's the little ones? Do you have time to chat?" Versus, "Did you do your homework?" So for me,
You're like setting the stage, you
exactly.
know.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Number 1, that makes a difference. Number 2, I learned very quickly that I needed to change my approach because I have this fire in me, and it's a Lebanese thing, it's on our DNA. We go from 0 to 100, okay? I could do that, no problem. You could ask my kids and how quickly I would yell at my son when he pisses me off. I could just go from 0 to 100 in a split second, in an AI second. So so for me, I learned how to adjust of not react and listen to
Mm.
understand versus listen to speak. I think to me that shaped me to be a much better leader because I also learned that being a leader is not just a one style approach. Do you golf, George?
Average,
Okay.
average golfer.
So I love golfing, and I'm gonna give you the analogy I learned through golf. When you golf, you use the driver. Well, you have all your clubs. I have 10 clubs in my bag, but every club has a purpose.
Mhm.
You can't play the entire game with your driver. Mind you, I drive my ball. I drive really well. I would love to play with my driver the whole game, but it doesn't work that way. But the driver has a purpose to drive ball as far as you can right off the tee. Then you have to use your hybrid or your iron or whatever, and then you have to use your putter because it's a slow motion, you need to putt it. And think about it in the workplace. The reason why I'm telling you the different jobs for every club is it's the same thing. You can't use the driver for every single situation you have when someone comes in your office or someone or in a meeting. Because imagine you're hitting hard the drive so far in that driver, it doesn't work in a meeting where everybody is anxious and there's chaos and you can't lead with fear and chaos of I'm gonna hit it and I'm gonna whack the heck out of this whole meeting. No, you might need someone comes into your office and they're really stressed out and they're anxious and something's going on. You sit there and you're like, I'm gonna use my putter because it's slow and I just
Mm,
need to listen to understand so I know which club to use. So that's the analogy that I adopted of not using my driver all the time and pick the right club because it's the right approach that you need to take in every different situation that you have because you can't be one way and it's the Rolla or George way or the highway. So that helped me immensely. For all leaders that are out there, and you talked about something that's extremely important, that especially your generation, they don't want to go to the office.
mm,
They want the luxury of, you know, working from home. N We all love the luxury of working from home and doing laundry in between and, to picking up kids, dropping off kids. I wish I had that back in the days. But at the same time, we're losing the momentum and we're depriving your generation from the human connection of how do you get promoted? How do you find mentors? How do you walk around and meet people at work and learn and understand what they're going through? Is being in an environment where you could sit and talk to everybody and have that connection, be it with your boss or a mentor. But at the same time, I don't want to push people to come to the office and I'm sitting in my office and the door's closed and everybody is on Zoom or WebEx. No,
mm.
you need to create the casino effect. You know the casino effect when you walk in and somebody wins and everybody's yelling and everybody wants to know how they did it. And it's like, let me try it. That's what you want. That vibe of walking into the office. Everybody's excited to see what George did today and how he did it and how I could do what George did.
Yeah, that's, that's a very special way to end. I think there's so many bits and pieces in this spot. I'm gonna have to definitely re-listen to this one, piece by piece. I think 1 hour doesn't do you justice. I feel like we need, I don't know, 10 hours, it seems like. So this might have to be a series at some point. I can't thank you enough. You're certainly, more phenomenal than, we even started. You left me much better than you found me for sure. And all I can say is thank you and kudos on all that you've done, all that you continue to do. Thank you for giving aspiring Lebanese Canadians like myself a chance to learn from you, and hopefully we can do you justice and our climb up.
Thank you, George. Listen, not a lot of people at your age do what you do outside of your full-time job. So good on you for doing that. I started with that and I want to end with that. And I will leave you with one thing that my father reminds me every day, Rola, life owes you nothing. Life is an opportunity for you to make the best out of it. And I wish that you go out and this generation goes out and makes the best out of what life has given us because it is so precious on so many level. And I believe in you. So I just want you to believe in yourself, believe in your ability that if someone like me could do it, that you can, you will, and you should.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Rula.
Thank you.